You're a part of the resistance.
Solo, a Star Wars story, is so money and it doesn't even know it. Welcome back to Star Wars Newsnet's The Resistance Broadcast. My name is John Hoey. We're going to talk about more Solo news and details, including why Han may drink White Russians and have Creedence Clearwater revival tapes playing in the Falcon cockpit. And we'll discuss just how many new Star Wars movies do we really want to get per year in our discussion segment. Yes, that's right, no Star Wars war this week. So you can put the gloves back on for now. And putting their gloves back on with me today are James Baney and Bill Sheehy. How's it going, guys?
It's going pretty good, man. My son just got to that Sylvester Stallone stage where he's like not saying real words, but he's like, Adrian!
So like Rocky,
I swear I heard him say that.
Like Rocky in the 10th round of a fight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's
my
awesome.
son the other day was like, cut me open.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
Top that, Bill.
I am doing great. I've been listening to a lot of Kanye West recently, so I'm going to start off with a little quote. And it's kind of, it's prevalent to people in the resistance. If the devil wear Prada, Adam Eve wear nada. I'm in between, but way more fresher. Happy to be here. Let's talk some Star Wars.
All right. Well, then, without further ado, it's time to find out if the Force is with us this week. Bill, what do you got for us?
In the words of the late, great Samuel L. Jackson, take a seat. Our first story today involves Jon Favreau. Now, Jon Favreau, a couple of weeks ago, he posted a picture of himself with Ron Howard and Larry Kasdan with a hashtag Star Wars and hashtag Solo. It left a couple of fans wondering if he was going to be doing something in the Star Wars universe, whether it be voicing a character or directing a film. This week we got our answer from Ron Howard, and he said that he is voicing a very cool and important alien. So with Favreau in Solo, we've gotten a lot of cameos from very famous actors in the Star Wars universe. We've gotten Tom Hardy in a cutout scene from The Last Jedi. We have Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing the voice of the alien on Canto Bight. And of course we have James Bond himself playing the stormtrooper that got Jedi mind tricked by Rey in The Force Awakens. So, James, is the Force with you on the increase in cameos by famous people in Star Wars?
On one hand, I want to say, like, why not? You know, go ahead. It's there, and forever it will always be there, and it'll be this little Easter egg thing that people will be able to talk about. But I think, like, honestly, like, none of it has mattered. I haven't felt like there's anything, like, really cool. There's no faces. It's, like, voices. It's just, nothing is really appealing to me. Like, we all talked about Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing that part, and then, like, we watched the movie, and we're like, well, who was he? Like, you know, like, you can't pick him out. Doesn't sound anything like himself. It was more just like the fact that his friend was doing the movie, and so he was able to come in and do it. But then they wrote a headline about it, and it's like, I mean, I guess that way we always know, at least it's recorded somewhere, that, like, this person had a part in a movie. But, man, does it really matter? But then I go back to my first point. It's like, I guess why not? Why not, right?
Exactly. Why not? John, is the Force with you on these cameos in Star Wars by famous people?
Nah, not really. It's only because it's like it's becoming a thing to do for famous people now. It's like the royal princes had cameos that I think got cut from The Last Jedi, and people are going to be like, well, that's Disney just screwing it up, man. But it's like, if you remember, George Lucas almost had NSYNC in like Attack of the Clones, so that would have been way more egregious in my opinion.
There are, like, people have, like, think that they've, like, found, like, a little scene where they think they see somebody from NSYNC in it, but yeah, I think you're right.
So it's just, and I don't know, it just seems like every movie, kind of like what James was saying, you're like, okay, he was in it, like, what's the big deal? Like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character was just, like, the most annoying voice possible in Canto Bight, and now I know when I see that character, instead of just seeing that character, I'm like, oh, there's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's cameo. Like, it kind of takes me out a little bit, but it's not really, I don't really care too much. But if it's one way or the other, the Force is not with me. Like, just give it to a no-name, someone in Lucasfilm, a puppeteer, or whatever.
Yeah. You know, I was actually going to jump off of that because I was thinking I forgot to mention, like, that also takes away a job from someone who's trying to make it in the voiceover industry.
Yeah.
So there actually is, like, kind of a practical point to saying, like, does Jon Favreau really need to do this, or can we give it to Steven Stanton or someone
diner
who,
waiter
you know what I
in
mean,
LA
does a
who's
really
looking
good
for-
job.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing that like monkey character or whatever, because it's it's a very cool and important character. So I mean, I don't think it's like cameo level, but I definitely think that it's going to be a big, not big, but a bigger role than what we're expecting. And off of what we're talking about, I think the Force is with me on this, but I gotta agree with a lot of the points that you guys made. It definitely it can take away from some talented voiceover artists, and if like for the case of Tom Hardy and the Princes, it didn't even make it into the movie. So I mean, it doesn't make sense if you're gonna do it. It's a cool thing, like, because everybody loves Star Wars. I mean, if one day like you, me, or James, we became famous actors, and we were like, we're friends with Rian Johnson, like, hey, put me in this movie. It doesn't, it's not a big deal to me, but, and even with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I had no idea that was him when they showed him. But anyway, the Force is with me on this.
Can we say bye to celebrity cameos in Star Wars movies? In sync.
Goodness gracious.
Hey, what's next, Bill?
to say bye. And I don't know if I'm going to be a famous actor or anything like that, like even a voice actor, but I know my son does a really great Sylvester Stallone
there.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's, like John said, let's say bye to that story, and we're going to move on to the next one. So the father-son duo of the Kasdans revealed some of their inspirations behind the script of Solo that they both worked on. So it has aspects of Treasure Island. They reread that book, and from there he talks about Heat and how he wanted to make it feel like it was that you couldn't trust anybody. There was always a chance of betrayal, which, I mean, when you're dealing in the underworld, you always deal with that. And then it goes on to talk about Unforgiven. How did this character of Bogart that Clint Eastwood play, how did he become so jaded? And even though we know that he's jaded, he's still a good person at the heart of it, just like Han. And then one of the weirdest ones was they took inspiration from Big Lebowski, which I know a lot of people are fans of the dude. And he talked about how it was more the kind of off-kilter tone and how the weird kind of underworld can be. So, John, hearing the list of these films, is the Force with you on what inspired the script of Solo?
It is, man. And I'll tell you why. Because it just goes back to what I've been saying with Larry Kasdan. Like, he could have said he watched Armageddon for inspiration on how to write this story. And I would have been like, fine, man. That's fine. Because you're Larry Kasdan. You've written Han Solo for 3 or 4 movies now. You even wrote Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, I trust you, man. So, it just adds on to it for me here in terms of, like, it has all the checks that we want for this movie. It has noir, western, heist, caper, everything we're kind of looking for this movie. And then he adds on top of the fact that he said it's going to be kind of like that bromance between Chewie and Han. So I'm sold on this list. Like, I haven't seen all these movies, but getting the summaries of them and the understandings of how they may fit in, I am on board. So 100% the Force is with me.
James Baney, hearing these list of films, is the Force with you?
Not really, honestly. I think
I go 100%. I am in. And James just goes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I want to say it's just kind of like your example is like he could have said Armageddon. I'm like, yeah, he kind of could just have said Armageddon because he listed 5 or 6 movies here, and that to me is just like someone that's like, hey man, I'm thinking about starting a new band. It's like a little bit of like Linkin Park meets like jazz with like some even more heavy like hip hop stuff, but then like also this, and you're just like naming things, and it's like what elements are you even going to take out of that stuff? And I know he went into those specifics, but there are redeeming qualities to Armageddon. I mean, like, if you were to say, like, I took stuff from Armageddon, I'd be like, cool. Like, probably not all the crappy stuff about Armageddon, but, like, some of the stuff that people actually were like, that was kind of cool, or that was decent, or at least it kind of holds the movie together. Like,
so if Han drills into the center of the Kessel, and
Yeah,
blows it
like-
up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like any movie ever that's good has like, you could theoretically come up with like 20 different movies that you pulled inspiration from. It doesn't mean anything necessarily.
Okay, I
like,
should
you
have named
can't
an Adam
pull
Sandler
anything
movie then or
from
something.
that. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that even if I was working on something realistic and there was a scene that I was like, okay, this kind of reminds me of that one scene in the Adam Sandler thing, like, maybe I do it just a little bit differently to maybe not make it as bad, or maybe that's one of the aspects that I actually really liked about that movie, and it's clearly not the same thing, but it's going to be like that, and I kind of had inspiration from that. So it doesn't matter. I don't know. Force is really not with me on this one. It's just kind of a blast story.
I disagree with that it's a blast story. I always enjoy hearing what their inspiration was. And to me, I kind of see it as like, it's different. It's mixing different genres, taking the best parts and like putting that into a film. I mean, it's not going to be like
Han Solo's going bowling. That was the aspect that they got from Big Lebowski. It's
no,
like,
I think they're going more towards tone and just like kind of like with the Treasure Island. It's definitely like, I mean, any kind of mentor kind of scoundrel figure is gonna like take inspiration from Treasure Island, because that's the one that's like that everyone thinks about when they think of like a mentor who betrays him, but at the end of the day is still your mentor. So the Force is with me just because I think all these different aspects they're taking are going to work, and I just think that it's going to be a beautiful mix. On to the last story that we're going to talk about today. So the maker himself, George Lucas, visited Ron Howard on the set of Solo last summer, and it was recently revealed by Howard that Lucas offered his advice on one scene, which Howard apparently agreed with and used. So, but this has actually led to some rumors that now Lucas is going to Ireland to scout filming locations for the yet-to-be-announced Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. And he dug up old stories that he had an idea for Solo before selling it to Disney. So, after that ridiculous rumor, should George Lucas stay away from future Star Wars projects to prevent false rumors about his involvement from surfacing? Is the Force with you on this, John Hoey?
Yes. Mr. Lucas, thank you for creating this incredible story that has turned into a way of life and escapism of joy for generations of fans. Now go away. I mean,
is it with you or not? I mean,
he visits Ron Howard for 5 hours. Mm-hmm. Aaron Reich's probably in the cockpit, and he turns his head one way and like winks his eye or something, and George is like, he should do that with his other eye. And Ron Howard's like, that's awesome,
brilliant!
George. Yes. Yes, I love it. And now it turns into headline, George Lucas directed a scene in Solo. Mm-hmm. George Lucas is in Ireland scouting for a movie we haven't announced yet. It's like, it gets out of control, man. So, I mean, I love George, love the maker, so much respect, but it's time to go away. We don't need that kind of distraction and ruffling people's feathers. So the Force is with me on George Lucas staying away.
Gotcha. James Baney, is the Force with you on George Lucas staying away from future Star Wars projects?
It's not with me. I think he has just as much right to be invited over and to kind of take a look and give his advice, because the people who are making the movies are Kathleen Kennedy and these great producers, and then you have Ron Howard and these great directors. And if George gives something some sort of advice that is meaningful or is actually like better than what Ron had in mind, he doesn't have any less right than someone like Ava DuVernay coming in and giving advice to J.J. Abrams. Like, he ended up using that too. And those stories ran with like, oh, now she's going to get she's the next director of another no, the stories of when people come in and they help and they give advice, that's always going to happen. And that's a good way to be creative. It's just friends helping friends out. Mm-hmm. The stories of them then carrying on and what that could mean in the future are always going to be there. So why is George Lucas being targeted? I guess because he was the original person or the creator, but he's really no different as a creative mind to come in and give advice on like, I don't know, like, I don't think it would be so much like he should wink with the other eye, but he might give some sort of advice like, I think Han would probably have said it this way. And if Ron agrees, then yeah, he's like, you know what, you're right. He probably would have said it that way. So they change it. And that may or may not be better for the movie. But I would imagine that since we're in the great hands of these great producers and great hands of these directors, then they will make the decision that ultimately is best for the movie.
Mm-hmm. Can we have James go before me from now on so we can't tear apart all of my lighthearted examples that I'm trying to put forward here? It's like, that hypothetical was stupid.
All right, so I guess my feelings toward it are a little bit mixed. The Force is definitely with me with him coming to help and him having some part of Solo. He really seems to love that character, and of the new Star Wars stuff that's come out, he really loved the Han Solo comic that came out, and he wanted I think it was the original kind of cover or something like that. So he definitely has a deep love for Han because he wrote him. So I mean, that makes sense to me, and I'm really excited to see what that little entry is. But as far as if he should stay away from it, it's going to lead to headlines like this. People are going to blow it out of proportion just because I think it's more because people were disappointed with the prequels more than anything. So I definitely think that it's cool that the maker is having some kind of say in these standalone movies or in any kind of Star Wars movie because he's the maker, and obviously none of this would be possible if he didn't make this. But the Force isn't with me. Like, just I don't want him to stay away, but I do. You know. Mm-hmm. So the Force is kind of with Matt. So that's all I've got for you guys. Big thank you to Val Trichkoff, Jelena Biden, also known as Lady Musashi, and new guy Trey Mitchell. All great writers, all do the best that they can every week, and we really, really appreciate it. So, John, you said there's no Star Wars war this week. So, James, introduce what we're about to talk about.
Well, we can't argue about everything every week. Sometimes we just actually need to take a minute, step back, and let's have a discussion on some of the things that are kind of floating around in the Star Wars world, if you will. And one of the things that we've noticed has been a topic of conversation for a few years now is if Disney is going to continue to put out these movies, how many movies can they put out before it becomes oversaturated or before we get tired of seeing Star Wars movies? And I think the two main things are, hey, are they going to keep it to one a year? Are they going to maybe do like these movies as a big run and then take like a 5 or 10 year break? Or are they going to like ramp it up and turn it into, say, 2 movies a year? So I just want to kind of take a few minutes to have a little bit of a discussion on what we think could be the future of these Star Wars films in the next 10 years or so. John, what do you think? Where do you think we're going with these?
Man, it's interesting because, and we kind of were researching, talking about this today because we weren't sure really how to approach it, to be honest. And then we realized that Val recently did a poll. Val's our editor-in-chief from our Star Wars Newsnet Twitter account just last week. And he said, how often do you want new Star Wars? And 54% of the people said once a year, and only 15% said twice a year. And then there was a couple of other answers in there. But then if you flip back 5 months before that, this is before The Last Jedi, 37% of people said they want 2 Star Wars movies a year. So that's a drastic difference. And I don't know if it's The Last Jedi divisive effect. It could be. I know we're going to talk about that. Or if it's people getting a little Star Wars fatigue now that Solo's coming up and we just had The Last Jedi. But I'm just curious if those things are going to factor in. And it's my opinion now, maybe because I'm jaded by the whole thing that's going on with all this Star Wars, is that they're going to divert back to December and do one a year for the next 10 years or so. But I'm really not sure. I mean, it's an interesting topic, and a lot of people have been talking about it. And you see in these polls just from a 5-month span, people really flipped their minds on it.
Mm-hmm. You see, and that's really surprising to me. I knew The Last Jedi was divisive, but I didn't know it was to change a whole opinion like that. That's going from a minority to majority, where majority people just want one a year now. But I think I kind of see them going to 2 a year at some point in the next 5 years. I don't think it'll be immediately because after this, we've got a year and a half to episode 9. So it's obviously we're getting one a year till then. But I think after you do that, you hit 2021 or 2022. I think with all the directors and we've heard a little bit of behind the scenes that they're hiring more directors, getting ready for stuff. You have the Weiss and the Game of Thrones guys, and you have Rian Johnson making his own thing. And I don't think that's the end of the director news that we're going to get soon. So I definitely think they're getting enough talent around to aim towards that 2 a year. And I think it could work.
So I was looking at this and I was saying, all right, we got episode 9 that's coming out in 2019. And then let's say there's a standalone. Let's say it's the Kenobi movie or something like that. And that's 2020, right? All right. Then we kick off our Rian Johnson trilogy and that comes in 2021. And maybe not in the same year, we get the Game of Thrones new series stuff, right? So let's just assume they go with the 1 a year timeline. We get, a Ryan movie in 2021, then a Game of Thrones in 2022, then a Ryan in 23, then Game of Thrones in 24, and 25 and 26 also have movies. At what point does that become 2 a year? Well, they could also be doing standalones. So in 2022, 2024, 2026, you get standalones, but that's still not 2 a year. That's 2 every other year. So then you have to have another set of movies come in. So it's almost like we're getting a trilogy and we're getting a new series of movies, and they're only halfway to announcing the future, the next 5 or 10 years.
I think what happens with Solo could affect their decisions on that, because if you're looking at 2 a year, you're looking at the May and then December release points. So if Solo takes a dive domestically for a Star Wars movie, it'll crush for a normal movie. But for a Star Wars movie, if it only lands at 280, 300 domestic, they're going to think twice about, let's not announce that we're doing 2 movies a year for a long time until they can pull it off.
And part of the, I wouldn't say hype, but part of the, what people are excited about Solo is that we just had The Last Jedi 6 months ago.
Right.
And so, people are it's not out of the realm of possibility where they could continue to do that. And we say and we're still technically getting 1 a year, but the fact that it came out in December, Last Jedi came out in December.
It's within
close.
Yeah, it's within a year.
I think that would not bother me at all, where we get a movie in December and then you get a movie in May.
And I think most people are with you. Most people are with you. But here's the thing is that where are we at? What are we talking about if The Last Jedi was universally loved?
Right. That there'd probably be let me get those that Rian Johnson trilogy now. Give me those 3 movies now, But what about also the factor of the production issues they've had trying to get one done a year?
That's a good point.
Rogue One had its issues, not too bad, but they brought in McQuarrie to help rewrite stuff, and they did reshoots. Han Solo, we know all about that. We don't need to talk about that. They pushed episode 9
and then
to December.
Because of Trevorrow,
Because of Trevorrow. So before they start saying, we're going to pop off 2 a year, let's get a movie that doesn't have any issues whatsoever and get that done maybe.
And here's the thing. And Kathleen Kennedy is an absolute pro, but it can take. Lucasfilm went from making 1 film every 5 to 8 years. Yeah. To
with 20-year gaps in between.
Yeah, exactly. So, and now they're really kind of ramping it up, and they're gonna have some growing pains, and with the exception of The Last Jedi, which really didn't have any kind of production issues.
Right. That's true.
I think I think it's just growing pains, and I think that as soon as as they get going, and they are getting going now, I think that's why there's such a long gap between Solo and 9. I think is because they're going to get all their ducks in the row, and they're going to get everything in line so that everybody is on the same creative process. Everybody's on going wants the same thing, and it doesn't turn into a Rogue One situation, or even worse, a Solo situation. So I feel like they've absolutely had problems, but I think that they can be fixed.
Now, do you think that there's a potential that the reason we're having, or we're almost starting to feel like we are getting fatigue, or we're like, oh, I don't know, that might be too much, is simply because these movies are all too similar. Like, do you think that maybe if they go down the route and they're like, look, we're going to do Star Wars and it's going to be like this and it's not going to have anything to do with
Is anyone fatigued? Like, I'm not fatigued at all. Like,
no. What I'm saying is when I say people are fatigued, it's that, 6 months ago they said, yeah, bring on 2 movies a year, and now they're like, I'm not so sure. I'm not saying they're like bored of it, but
you have to look at it.
They're not fatigued, then whatever it is. I'm saying maybe if the movies are drastically different in tone and story and time period and where they take place in the galaxy, maybe those things are things that they're like, oh, cool. Well, it's like I can enjoy my Star Wars to the left, and then I can also enjoy my Star Wars to the right.
I think if you you're saying in terms of an oversaturation in terms of similar content, that's one thing, but in terms of like when you eat a big meal and then like someone talks about, hey, what do you want to have for dinner tomorrow? You're like, I don't even want to think about food. Like I can't even process that right now. Or if you're like full and you go to the grocery store, you're like, I can't grocery shop right now. So I think there's a little bit of that right now too, and not for us like crazy Star Wars fans who literally sit and record and talk about Star Wars all the time.
I mean, I'm talking about it's not really fair.
The casual movie-going fan may be like, I just saw 2 Star Wars movies, like,
but
I'm not
okay.
And I know you didn't. I know you didn't want to bring this up.
This is where I think it gets interesting, because we don't get tired of movies because we go see a romantic comedy, then we go see a horror movie, then we go see an action movie, then we go see a suspense. We don't ever get bored, and we also don't even really get bored of big blowout movies. We'll go watch, The Rock do something, and then like the next week we're watching Jason Statham do something.
Yeah,
so
with
it's
The
like
Rock.
Yeah, with The Rock, yeah. I mean, like, The Rock's doing 4 movies a year, so why aren't we getting sick of that?
The Rock has a movie that comes out literally every week.
My thing is, so then will people actually get bored of seeing Star Wars? Like, oh, I just saw another Star Wars movie last week.
Not if you get The Rock in Star Wars. If you get The Rock in Star Wars.
That's always
possible. You get The Rock for every Star Wars movie.
Exactly, that's it. That's the magic recipe.
So, Bill, go there. Go where you were going to go, because I know where you're headed. There's one big franchise out there, multiple franchises, all under one umbrella, that's currently doing this. Where's that?
Bring it on.
The DCEU. No, I'm kidding. It's
the DCEU.
The DCEU. No,
the DCEU. Erasing mustaches and franchises one swoop at a time.
No, I'm the Marvel Universe has been going for 10 years. And nobody's getting bored of them. And they seem to, the past year or so, or 2 years, I mean, they were all kind of samey until Avengers Age of Ultron, and then we kind of got our Civil War, or we got our Thor Ragnarok, or Doctor Strange. So I think nobody's getting tired of them, and they're even putting even more, because we have Black Panther this month.
Aren't some of them kind of stinkers?
No, I mean,
not really, man. Maybe 2 might fall into a category where, like, you could say most people don't love them, but they're not bad.
I just feel so protective over Star Wars that I don't want a popcorn Thor Star Wars movie. I want Star Wars to be meaningful.
You're already going to get that, man, if you're getting 3 Rian Johnson movies, multiple Game of Thrones movies. Like, we talked about this off air, but
I'm really concerned.
What does a series of movies even mean? It's not one.
Yeah, I think
it's
it's
not
4
2.
or
You don't
more.
say series, and you don't say trilogy. You say series. So
and here's how this is like just how I would break it down. If they did do 2 movies a year, standalone movies are your Star Wars story movies. Avengers, your big time movies, those are your saga films, the ones that everybody's looking forward to. So you have a perfect model with this, right? I guess it's technically your sister company, your cousin, or whatever kind of stuff it is. Why not go that route? I mean, people like I don't care how many Star Wars movies they do. I think that Star Wars will continue to be an event because it's Star Wars. It's gonna have that legacy throughout its.
I feel like it might
life.
lose a little bit of the magic.
But like, has it lost some of its magic?
They haven't really done it yet.
But like, we went from having prequels every 3 years to having a 10-year hiatus to having one a year. Has it lost it? I mean, not to me. Like, it's not. It's because to me, each one is a little bit different.
How about this? I mean, do you think they're waiting a little bit to see? We're not going to know what the backlash of The Last Jedi really was until we see what happens with Episode 9. Because people went to go see The Last Jedi, and before it really hit, I think the backlash for that movie, it didn't really affect it as much as it will affect the next entry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think,
and that's always the case. Like,
yeah. So I think they're not going to, like, Kathleen Kennedy doesn't need to announce anything. Star Wars is fine.
Yeah.
So they could be planning everything behind the scenes. Like Pablo keeps tweeting, like, I'm working on something that may not show up for 2028, you know?
Yeah.
And they're probably going to wait to see and hold their cards and wait to see what happens. So like James and Bill, you both were saying, I guess I could see it happen, but I don't think we're going to get a glimmer of hearing about it for at least 3 or 4 years.
Oh, and Kathleen has said before that they're already looking towards the next decade of Star Wars to begin with.
Right,
So I mean that kind of makes sense that they're thinking about where to go from there, from 9 and beyond. So I mean that's just one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to confuse anybody. I don't think they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going 2 movies a year. I just want to as a thought experiment. I mean, I highly doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
Like even past 10 years from now, like I just want to do it as a thought experiment to see, like, does that even really make sense? And to me, like, I'm just looking at it and I think there is something very lightning in a bottle about what Marvel is doing. There's something that is like, that's one continuous storyline.
Is it
it's
a bubble?
spread over? I mean, it might be. It's
and you look at DC trying to copy that success, and they just haven't. So I mean, you may be right, and
those movies, like, they have their own trilogy. There's an Iron Man trilogy, a Thor trilogy, a Captain America trilogy. There's going to be an Avengers, like 4 movies basically, but it's like a part 1, part 2 kind of thing. And in 12 years, they will have done 24 movies that are all basically sequels of each other. Whereas, like, in Star Wars, they all take place in kind of the same, in a larger timeline and in the same universe, but I don't see Rian Johnson's trilogy and the Game of Thrones stuff directly tying in with each other like the Marvel stuff does.
We got to get a new name for that, though.
yeah.
Oh, I know, yeah.
The untitled Rian Johnson trilogy.
The Benioff and Weiss series.
You remember both of their names. I couldn't.
I wrote them down, Bill.
I'm gonna write it on my hand.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I could see Star Wars becoming a tradition.
Will be more
now.
popular.
You know what I mean? Like, it's Christmas time. You know, it's holiday season. That means it's Star Wars time. Like, every trailer is Christmas. You know,
it makes more sense to me that you do one movie, then another, then this, then that, then this, then that. And by the time 6 years has passed, we're going to be like, okay, that was great. That was fun. We'll always have those movies. What's next? And they're going to announce a different trilogy or a different series or something. I kind of don't see them doing like, and you get a standalone, and you get a standalone.
And don't forget,
especially
are there live action Marvel series like still going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you've got
but
Daredevil
those don't.
and Jessica Jones.
Oh yeah. So I was gonna say, did the Star Wars TV shows affect that? I guess they wouldn't.
You see, that's the thing. And I don't want to talk about Marvel for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
I know, but that's a different thing where they're not even like mentioning that in the movie universe. So it's kind of off to the side. But I think that at some point a Star Wars TV show will connect with some type of standalone or saga
I don't even mean
film.
connecting story-wise. I just mean in terms of production. Like, we're doing 2 shows, and now we're doing 2 movies. Like,
how do you...
Yeah.
Like, with Marvel, they have 2 different studios that are doing television and
like
film.
they're going to have
whereas,
to quadruple
this
the
is
size.
just Lucasfilm altogether.
The story
doing
group's going to
all
go
of it.
crazy
Yeah.
unless they've already mapped all that out, you know?
Which they probably have.
Yeah, they may have.
If they're doing it.
Well, either way, I mean, it's really interesting to think about.
Yeah, I can't honestly see them going to 2 movies a year anytime in the near future, because I think they have a solid pattern that's tried and true as of now. You know what I mean? So far, we've basically got one movie a year, and it was great, and then it was great again, and then it was great a third time, and then it was like they threw a wrench in and threw in Han Solo and May, and all of a sudden everybody's like, I don't know about this. So it's like,
and like we talked about before,
even...
I mean, 9 was at May, so I mean, John, I think there's definitely something to having it in December. It
The Last Jedi was supposed to be May too.
Yeah, exactly, and I feel like it is an event because and it has that nice little cushion of there's really nothing to go up against it the rest of the year. While in May, Solo's going up against Deadpool and Avengers. Yeah. So I mean,
and Star Wars should never be afraid of other movies.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
If you have your niche right there, everyone comes home for the holidays. Everyone has their days off. Let's go see Star Wars 7 times. All right, let's go. It just makes perfect sense. But I hope we remember this. If Val puts out this poll again a year from now, when we're so removed from Star Wars and we're still almost a year away from Episode 9, if that number ticks back up where people are like, yeah, I want 2 a year. Yeah. Because I think it'd be interesting to see. I think it would change.
Well, what if we should do a poll directly after Solo and just see if
that, or they don't do anything for 5 years. Like, we know the Rian Johnson stuff is coming, we know the other series is coming, but we don't know exactly when. And theoretically, Lucasfilm could be like, all right, well, we'll do like a standalone in 2019, and then 2020 to 2030, nothing.
I don't think they would do that.
I agree. I don't think they would do that. But the thing is,
or if Daisy Ridley and Boyega's career tanked, and they're like, Episode 10 coming in 2028. You know?
I'm just saying that proposal has not. I mean, that's not non-existent. There are people out there that are saying, I like that we got Star Wars from 77 to 83, and then there was a big break, and then when it came back big and hard, and we loved it, and we got the special editions and prequels and all that stuff. No, I'm saying, but we got Star Wars again, and then we thought it was gone. We thought it was gone forever, and there was this big long break, and then it came back, and it came back hard, and it came back, like everybody's really excited about it. So if we continue to do one movie a year, I think it's in the conversation that somebody could say, no. Let's just do these standalones. Let's do 7, 8, and 9 and just leave it at that. And then let's take a break for a really long time. And then let's say the trilogy's done, or not the trilogy, but like the 1 through 9 is done, the episodic stuff. And then let's do a new trilogy, new stories and all that. And it'll be refreshing and new, and we'll all get excited about Star Wars again.
I hate to say
I'm just saying it's out there.
I like Lucas would do that, and I like that. But if these movies keep, making close to $1 billion each, they're going to keep making them.
Oh yeah, no.
And that's unfortunately the reality is that's what ultimately is going to decide it.
The Force Awakens alone almost like paid for the $4 billion deal. So I mean, it's
George Lucas got ripped off, man.
Yeah, they're going to keep making them until. They're going to keep making them until...
He got $4 billion up front in cash. There's nothing in the contract open about all the back end stuff he's getting.
And he still gets to scout filming locations and write the standalone movies. So it's really great.
Yeah, plus he's in control of the whole thing anyway.
Yeah, he's written the whole story already.
Yeah, it's all a conspiracy. Now, he's all in charge of it.
But I think you're right. I think they're going to continue to do these movies as long as they're successful. And I guess the other movies were successful too, but you're right. George had that ability and he's like, no, I'm just going to do these Star Wars.
Yeah. But dude, imagine Solo just shocks everyone and kills it and makes like $1 billion and everyone loves it. They're going to be like, all right.
Well, as Bill put it, Lucasfilm isn't reactionary. So they might not be thinking like whether it doesn't do as well as we thought, or it doesn't do great, or it does like exceptionally well. It doesn't change the plans possibly. I don't know. I think they're a little reactionary though.
Here's my prediction. I talked about it a little bit earlier. If Solo does well, like you guys are saying, I think that by 2022 we will go to 2 movies a year, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was like the December-May thing we have with Solo now.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock
because it just, and even like it technically wouldn't be one a year, it would still feel like it.
Yeah.
Because
So
It
question,
just-
Bill. So you get Ryan Johnson and he does his own thing and it's completely new, right? And then you get the Game of Thrones story, whatever, and that's Knights of the Old Republic, right? And then you also get, let's say, like a standalone, like they'll do, maybe that's where we get the Boba Fett. Maybe that's where we get the Salacious Crumb. Maybe that's where we get,
Salacious Crumb.
yeah, we get all these extra little bonus Jabba the Hutt gangster movie, right? What else do you want? I mean, like at that point, you need another trilogy, another series, or
Here's the thing with Star Wars.
standalones to make it 2 a year. So what do you want?
Specific, like you want specifics off the top of my head?
No, I'm
because
just saying, like I'm starting to run out. I'm like, well, they got the Old Republic.
Here's the
stuff,
thing.
they got this.
in the same way that Marvel has like a varied library of stuff, there is a lot of potential that we haven't even thought about yet. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
a galaxy.
It's a whole galaxy. Just like that's the perfect way to say it, John. So it just, like I said, we don't know what that next perfect story is, but somebody is.
Right.
Ryan's thinking
Yeah.
of it.
There could be,
Poppy's
there could be
thinking
Star
of it.
Wars
I'm putting
movies
you
that
on
are
the
not,
spot. It's hard to predict.
yeah, there could be Star Wars movies
you
that have
don't
nothing
know.
to do with Jedi or the Force, and well, I mean,
Yeah,
who knows what
absolutely.
they do with that?
Yeah.
It could be about
Absolutely.
someone running a deli somewhere. I mean, who knows, really?
Hashtag
It will
Holdo
never
Deli.
be. It will never
It'll
be
never be
about
a thing.
Holdo's Deli.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess I just put the nail in the coffin on that discussion with my
Yeah,
attempt at an inside joke, but.
Yeah, I think you guys are right, and I think it's healthy for us to even like entertain the idea of what it could be if they do two, if they decide that they're gonna stick to one, or maybe even like take a huge break and then release some movies later. Let's just have the discussion, and we did. So, let us know. Also, listeners who are listening to this, let us know what you think. This is obviously on YouTube. This is on Twitter. This is in SoundCloud. Like. Whatever medium you're listening to, put it in the comments. Let us respond. Let us know what you're thinking, so that in
talk
future
to us.
discussions we get the vibe, and we could say, look, coming from what our perspective as podcasters, our audience tends to think this, so it helps us to be informed about what our audience is looking at. So
And we obviously love a lot of content because it helps us fill our shows with stuff. So
Absolutely.
Correct. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that wraps up this discussion, at least for the time being. We'll take a look at it maybe after Solo, or maybe in 10 years from now when we're still doing this podcast. Yeah. But for now, we don't have that time. We're going to go on to our next section, which is the last section of this episode. It's the Resistance Expanded Universe. John?
Okay, so again, this is new. So if you haven't listened in a while, this is basically where we try to look for stuff out there in fandom that's not directly tied to official Star Wars Lucasfilm type stuff. Even if it's moderately big or popular, anything from that all the way to small stuff that fans do. So we try to look for those things and bring them to your attention. So one of our listeners, Ryan Simi, pointed us to these folks at the website called www.astarwarscomic.com. And they're also on Twitter at a Star Wars comic. And what they do is they create digital or electronic comic books, 6 sheets each. They have about like 30 issues right now, and it's anything from like little side characters like Two Tubes in Rogue One, and just showing a little side conversation he may have had with a stormtrooper on Jeddah, to just kind of create your own little headcanon and fill the gaps to enrich the galaxy a little bit. And I thought the art was pretty cool, and the discussion seemed legit. Like I could see that in actual Star Wars stuff. Did you guys get a chance to check this out yet?
I haven't gotten a chance in full effect to actually look at it, but I did open up some of the comics and I was like, okay, so this one's kind of cool. It's about this character.
Yeah.
And as far as the artwork goes, I was like, man, this straight up, it's on par with the stuff that Marvel's putting out. Like, I was really impressed, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this artist, get a job later down the line and working with these companies, because it seems to me that like the way the paneling was all laid out, the inking, the art itself, like the drawing was really good, and it kind of made me interested. I personally do plan on staying away from it, though, because I don't like mixing non-canon stuff up,
With canon,
because
yeah.
I am the type of person that already gets confused when I start thinking like about something that I know about Legends. I'm like, wait a minute, was that something that, and it just scares me to even talk about it.
Yeah, I get that.
But I understand that it's out there and it needs to be out there. And that's why we celebrated an expanded universe. This guy's doing an awesome thing. And if, I don't know if he has a way to like support him, but like, if you guys check it out and you like it, if he has a Patreon or something, like totally hit this guy up. He's going to keep doing content.
And our buddies in the podcast world, the Black Series Rebels, you can find them on Twitter at BLK Series Rebels or BlackSeriesRebels.com. They're doing a live show in Los Angeles on March 3rd. If you haven't checked their show out, check it out. They are the self-proclaimed Wayne's World of Star Wars, so they don't take themselves too seriously. They have a lot of fun the way Star Wars should be. I believe in their last episode, they ate 30-year-old gum from like old Topps Empire Strikes Back cards.
Oh my gosh.
Yum.
They
Delicious.
They have a good time, and we're actually gonna have one or two of them back on the show soon. They were on one of our previous episodes, so check them out at Black Series Rebels. And again, if you're in the LA area on March 3rd, they are doing a live show, so go check those guys out.
I couldn't believe they ate that gum.
All right, and if you see anything interesting or fun out there in Star Wars fandom, just send it to us. We want to give creative or charitable fans the attention they deserve. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review and rating on iTunes, and like our episodes on SoundCloud and YouTube. Do us a favor, head over to our store, tpublic.com/user/Resistance Broadcast, and pick up Resistance Broadcast merchandise. All of our apparel is on sale through the weekend, including our new Thrawn, Lego Kylo, which he's shirtless with Lego plugs. It's pretty funny. A Teletubby
Lego
Poe.
nipples.
Yeah, Lego nipples. A Teletubby Poe design, which I'm too old to understand. And for this weekend only, we've brought back all of our character series shirts. So we have the Yoda Wise, Leia Princess, Kenobi High Ground, and Kylo Supreme Leader shirts. And on top of that, we have variants of our triple solo shirts, which has been our top seller. So go to tpublic.com/user/Resistance Broadcast and buy some on-sale merch. In addition to shirts, you can buy coffee mugs, stickers, posters, and more. And again, it's the best way to support the show. For all of your latest news, reviews, editorials, and information, go to our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com. James Baney, where can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MyerTrunks, MyerTrunks. And if you can't find me at one of those places, you can head over to our YouTube, where I will be writing you back either from my personal account or from our Resistance Broadcast account, just because I'm monitoring that stuff. And I don't want to make it look like we're all saying things that are my opinion. So that would be pretty sketch. But yeah, I'll be willing to have a chat with you on YouTube if you want to leave some comments there.
Awesome, man. And Bill, when you're not seeing Black Panther in the theater, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me seeing Black Panther. No, I'm kidding. You can find me on Twitter at Star Wars Bill. Please, please, please check out my reviews of the last episodes of Star Wars Rebels. My review posted on Monday night after the new episode came out, so check that out. I'll have another one ready for you guys when the next episode comes out, and then the next one after that. So thank you guys so much for listening. And to end with a rap lyric, I am not throwing away my shot.
All right, thanks, Bill. I'm John Hoey. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing articles and editorials at StarWarsNewsNet.com. Thank you for listening. Please keep spreading the word to your friends and family, your accountant, mechanic, really anyone you know that likes Star Wars. It's the best way to spread the word of our show, so we appreciate it. We'll be back here with you on Monday morning, so make sure you're subscribed and ready for our next transmission right here on the Resistance Broadcast.